Bob Long MVP. Yeah, it's 2016 right now, December 2016, and the Generation 2 is right around the corner. I think it's supposed to debut sometime in February. But anyway, you know, point of this video is not necessarily to do a review. There's plenty of those out there. Want to do a teardown on this and go over some common problems. So I bought this thing used, and you can see the wonderful Bob Long packaging. Very plain. You know, you don't pay a ton for a bunch of shit you're never going to use. Let's throw that aside. You know, when you get the marker, you can get a player's kit. I think it's like 26 bucks. I double up on a lot of stuff. You know, we've got a bunch of them on our team, so I wanted a bunch of stuff in stock. Doesn't come with the oils, doesn't come with the grease. And I think even these days you have to buy the bumper separately, but typically you don't need those. But it comes with springs, comes with bolts, and it comes with O-rings, so you have plenty of all those. You get hammer springs, you get slide springs, and you get a couple different tensions on them too. So always nice to have. Regular is inline in the Bob Long. It's in the grip handle. We'll tear it down, take a peek at it. Guns are pretty simple. You know, there's a couple things to note up front. You know, it doesn't require a lot of tools to do a lot of work. It basically 2 screws right here, and most of your service needs are going to be right there. Alright, so I'm fighting around my tripod right now. A little awkward. Alright, 2 screws aside, separates the marker in half. Careful of this 1x3 O-ring right here. Make sure this guy's in focus. Obviously that guy came with the lower half, and he's supposed to stay with the upper. Alright, so the upper half, here's our 1x3 right here. This is one of the critical things, man. Most people make the mistake of tearing that O-ring. When they go put it back together, they'll slide the slide, or they'll slide the 2 halves together. You know, do something like this, and they end up knocking the 1x3 out of place. It's an odd size O-ring. It's 1x3 millimeter. You know, you can get a bunch of those from Bob Long. You can order 50 of them online for like $4 or $5 from Amazon. I got a bunch of them. Like I said, we got a bunch of team players, or a bunch of our team with them. So we're going to go ahead and pull our back cap off for our slide. One of the things you'll notice is you have roller bearings here on our slide, and that's pretty unique. Like I said, this thing's completely different than the autococker based system. Apparently I chopped the ball last time. So we're going to go ahead and set our slide back. Set our 1x3 there. And you see our hammer back here. See our bolt. So one thing to note the position of the bolt. You know, we got a guide pin that slides right in there. You got a guide pin that's going to go over here. But if you don't want to do a bunch of sliding to potentially knock your 1x3 loose, keep your bolt kind of forward. Helps ease everything out. Alright. So we have our power tube out. Let me clean that guy off real quickly. Alright, pull the bolt out. It just comes out with a tap, and you can still see it's pretty paint all over it. Alright. So it's brass. A lot of people like brass. I really don't care as long as the damn thing works. You know, a couple things to note, MVP. Some people don't like the farting sound it makes, and it just sounds different. I don't really think it sounds like a fart. It doesn't sound like a, you know, one of the Zodin KPs that really fart. Let's go ahead and separate our power tube. I probably should pull the back cap off first. My cat decided to make an appearance across the screen. All right, pull the front out. Yeah, a couple things to note. We've got some sealing surfaces on the front power tube. We've got one O-ring here. We've got two here for the main air passageway. There are no O-rings on the back. This is completely exposed to the atmosphere. And we have one here in our bumper. And then we have another O-ring right here. So, a couple things to note. You know, you need to have a proper seal right here. So you want to feel it for drag, and if it feels too loose, you might get a barrel leak. So the original one from this marker, when I got it, it leaked. And there was almost no drag. You can see the kind of a lot of the play right here, too much free play. And that thing did not seal. So a little bit more drag. But I think this guy's 20 bucks from Bob Long. I don't think it comes in the player's kit. You know, this one was the cause of the leak. I'm going to go throw that over there. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and assemble it, and I forgot to mention earlier, we do have another O-ring right here. Sorry, let me get it in view. We do have another O-ring right here. So we'll put our bumper in. So, you know, if you guys want to do the washer mod, basically install a washer that fits between this spring and it goes over here. You can take both components to Home Depot. I can't remember the sizes off the top of my head. But make sure you got good drag here with the O-ring. Lube it up. I should say grease it up. I'll go ahead and screw the power tube back together. Okay. Spring goes on, hammer goes on. I mean, obviously not a big deal. But you can lube this up with a drop of oil. One thing to note is check your springs. This guy was bent on one of our buddies' used MVPs. And it was binding, so as you would cock it, you could feel it bind. So you can see it right here. So we'll throw that out. And like I said earlier, you can get different tension springs. So if you do the washer mod, you probably are going to need a higher tension spring so you can hit chrono. So another way to get rid of the sound signature, or change the sound signature on this marker, is to replace this O-ring with a 1x3, so 1.5 by 3 millimeter. And it gives it extra little bit of drag inside the bumper, and it changes the sound signature of the marker a little bit. So again, you can find them on Amazon, 1x3 by 5 or 1.5 by 3. Go ahead and pull one out. If you guys are laughing, watch me trying to get this O-ring off. I'm trying to work around a tripod here. I need to come up with some better solution for the camera over the desk. So you can see the difference in the O-rings. And trying to stretch this guy over is always a joy. All right. Give that guy just a dab of lube. And it does change the tension on it quite a bit. So that's the 1x3 mod. So that's the upper end of the marker. You know, it's pretty easy. If you have an external leak, you're going to check this O-ring, our front O-ring, and then we're going to check the one in the middle that's on the front power tube. Also the one in the bumper too, you want to check. Let's go ahead and clean our top off. In here, we have a spring detent. I wish I would have had a barrel swab handy for this, but what are you going to do? We're going to go ahead and lube up our O-rings here for our power tube. Alright, and we're going to go ahead and push our bolt forward. If you remember where it was last time, it was pretty far forward. Let's set this aside. Alright, so our 1x3 O-ring goes right here. This is one of the critical steps. You know, if you're new, you haven't used it much. Take and grease that O-ring up. So it stays in place. Apparently pulled too hard there, but what we don't want is we don't want it coming out when you turn it upside down. So again, it's very easy to chop this guy if you slide the two halves together. So our roller bearings, you can lube those up. So we make sure our bolt's good. We're going to pull the lower frame apart. We're going to take a look at the regulator. Alright, so pretty unique compared to other pumps. Regulator's inline right here. Spring for our trigger. Alright, so one bolt through the top, the other one through the bottom, but this one is contained. So you gotta loosen this one first, or break them both loose and then pull the front one out completely. Otherwise you'll bend the frame trying to get this one out first. So we have what's referred to as a racetrack O-ring right here. It's our air passage. And typically these guys are Loctited in. Like I said, the back one's contained right here. You can see the other air passage from our regulator. Our trigger dowel pin, don't lose that guy. Roller bearing on our trigger. We'll pull the back screw out. We've got one more screw here. So pull our trigger outside of the side. We've got one screw for our regulator here, and we've got two for the bottom. And I think there's another one in the bottom of that ASA. We'll go ahead and clean our ASA off. We have another O-ring down here. It's not a 1x3. So if your tank output pressure is too high, you're going to be blowing this O-ring here, and then potentially the other O-ring on the bottom of the regulator. All right, and then our regulator is out. Now, here where you want to be very careful, these ball bearings right here. There's another one down here, and you guys will see in the video, I'm just seeing another video I have, or another photo. Jeez. We'll go ahead and pull the bottom half out. This is your main valve. Got two O-rings here. So be careful with this. See if I can get out. I don't think I can get out. Someone lubed it up, which is good. So here is the small ball bearing. Let's see if I can get out now. So our small ball bearing goes here for our chrono adjustment. So our chrono adjustment's done right here. That's how you'll adjust the velocity of the marker. So upper end of our regular, we have our spring tension stack right here. This small O-ring only holds these springs on. Typically you don't want to adjust that. Large ball bearing sits right at the top of it. We have one more O-ring on our piston right here. So I'm going to put some new grease on it. So again, when it goes back, I'm going to put a little bit of grease. Just for demonstration purposes, so it'll stay. But when it sits inside the marker, it's going to sit pretty much like that. And you're going to have the screw, the chrono screw, pushing on the smaller one. It's going to push down on our our larger ball bearing. It's going to push everything down in our regulator. So we're going to check our O-rings here. Give it a little bit of lube. So we got another O-ring here. So when you're going back together, we put the big O-ring in first. Make sure that's fully seated. And one way to make sure is to make sure you can see your ball bearing right here. And make sure everything's pressed down against it. Then we're going to take a little bit of lube. Keep this guy in place. We don't want the small ball bearing rolling out on us. Give it a little bit more grease. And so pretty simple marker. If you guys have any questions, let me know. You can see our velocity adjustment right here. It slides into place, and then O-rings allow you to give it the right distance. Nothing like trying to work around a tripod here. Yeah, it's worth noting right now, not all Allen wrenches are created equal, so you want to make sure you have proper fitting. This is almost too much play right here for me. I think I'm going to switch to my other Allen wrenches. So much better fit. Now, if this guy blows out, if you're actually having the seal blowing out of place, you're just like you have something wrong with the regulator typically. So before you screw anything down, make sure your dowel pin's in the right spot. Make sure it's not too far out on either side. Alright, so let's talk about auto trigger. First thing to do is if you have problems with auto triggers, to check your frame screws. You're going to check this guy, and this guy. Obviously, you can't check this one from the outside without pulling the lower, separating two halves, but definitely do check them. Another thing is if you have too much grease inside here and your regulator can't recharge, that would be a situation where you could, without air, it would function normally, and then you would air it up and then it wouldn't work. It would work first time, or it would work if you did slowly. If you press too hard on your trigger, your auto trigger may not work. We found that out. A couple guys decided to He-Man the grip there. Alright, so before we put the marker back together, go ahead and I'm going to hold it like this, and we're going to actually slide it back and make sure we have our bolt in the right track. I'm going to make sure it's in the right groove. We're good everywhere else. If you want to put a little oil, give it a dab of oil in the back. 1, 2. Amazing what a difference that makes. So a couple buddies, when they put them together, they would put it together and try to slide it, and that's when they were ruining their 1x3 O-ring right here. So when you go together, just set it on top. Alright, and that's it. If you have any questions, let me know. Obviously, I've got to put the grip on, but we'll spare you guys that.